Janet and John. John goes car racing. Today, Janet and John are going car racing. See John put on his sparkly red overalls with white sequins and patent leather driving gloves. John won a competition in the Fop and Dandy Gazette for a day racing cars at Snetterton. Do you know where Snetterton is? Janet does. Snetterton is in Norfolk. See Bernard Matthews. It is a long drive to Norfolk. See John bouncing up and down in his safety seat, making car noises, all the way there. When they arrive at the racetrack, Janet says, "I'm just going into the village to pick up some tablets for this headache and something for dinner on Sunday. I'll be back soon." John waves to Janet as she drives off. John skips through the door of the racing school. The man on the desk says, "Ah yes, Mr. Marsh, we have Mrs. Ruffle teaching you today. Go through the doors and you'll see her. Mrs. Ruffle is wearing blue overalls." "Hello, Mr. Marsh," says Mrs. Ruffle. "Hello, Mrs. Ruffle," says John. "What fun." John says, "Do you teach car racing all of the time?" Mrs. Ruffle says, "No, I sometimes teach sailing on the coast, but this is much better because I don't have to get caught up in the traffic at Fakenham." Mrs. Ruffle leads John to the car. It is a very fast yellow one. John says, "Do you have any other cars, as this one clashes with my overalls?" Mrs. Ruffle shakes her head. See John drive around the racetrack very fast. There are lots of other cars on the racetrack, and John bumps into one of them, but there is no damage. Mrs. Ruffle says, "You are a very good driver, Mr. Marsh, and you took that last right-hand bend very well, with a great line to the finish. But you tend to drive a bit too fast in some places. Do you know where Pitlochry is?" John does. See the points on John's driving licence. Soon it is time to go. John gets out of the car and says thank you to Mrs. Ruffle, then skips back to the car park to meet Janet. "Hello, John," says Janet. "Sorry I'm late. I picked up a lovely fresh duck for Sunday lunch. Did you have a nice time?" "Yes," says John. "Mrs. Ruffle said that I had a very smooth lap, but noticed a big bump in the middle after a quick right-hander. She said that she enjoyed her session with me, even though I finished a bit too quickly. And she didn't have to worry about Fakenham either." Do you know how to concuss someone with a fresh duck? Janet does. Poor John. Good night, boys and girls.